I should have been able to predict. So just before we started, hi, welcome to the League One Look podcast. It's a special edition. We're missing Harry, who's at Mansfield and Matlock. So we've got Liam from the Lower League Look, who is, if you're not watching it on video, was sporting a replica WWE. Yes,
it's not replica, it's the real thing.
Is it a real? Right, okay. So he's got it's a wrestling thing, and it continues that I know nothing about wrestling. So good for you, Liam. We've got a special show tonight in that there is no Harry, but also we've got a special guest. We are new to League One, as you all know, and as part of our orientation to League One, we've got Gary Hutchinson from the Stacey West, which is, well, I'll let Gary explain, Gaz. Explain.
Yeah, hello, pleasure to be here. So the Stacey West is a Lincoln City fan site. So we do videos. I have the face for the podcast, so I tend to only be on audio, but we do have video, and we have an awful lot of written content as well. And we are the third longest serving team in League One at the moment, so who better to come on and talk about League One other than Shrewsbury and Burton fans?
And Burton fans definitely have lots too. Yeah. But what we're going to do today is talk to Gaz a little bit about what we can expect from League One, but less so about predictions. So kind of like at the beginning of a TV show, you have that like previously on 24.
Lost.
Yeah.
Oh, we both went different directions there, Hannah.
So it's only Lost, because well, whatever. It happens on a lot of TV shows. I don't think we need to differentiate. But previously on, thinking about last season, what the kind of big stories were, what we need to expect, and then also every Stotford County, Mansfield, Crawley, Birmingham.
Don't need to mention the fourth.
All the people. Oh yeah, Wrexham. Oh yeah, we can tell you all about Wrexham, Gus. What we can expect from League One in terms of away days, great grounds to go to, and we can tell you a little bit about the clubs coming up and some of the players coming up as well, because I mean we mentioned Burton there. They've done a pillaging of League Two.
Yeah.
And it's like League Two All-Stars.
The thing is, it's not just Burton. There's a lot of players being taken from League Two this season. I say that there's not a lot. There's not as many as I thought there was, but there are players from League Two that have stepped up to League One. That were part of teams that didn't really perform how they should have. For example, a defender from Notts County stepped up, and Notts County's defence last season was horrific. And it's like, it's interesting to sort of see, because we'd have wrote them off based off of the team's overall performance and said, look, they need another season in League Two. But obviously someone's seen something in these players and pulled them up. But yeah, like you said, Burton is essentially, it's League Two All-Stars going up against League One next season, which I'm all for. I'm really interested to see how they do.
And the vast majority of players you would say were playing at League One level anyway. They are, like I said, the All-Stars. They were incredibly strong in their own teams. Some of them, Elwat for one, didn't have such a great season last year, but a stellar season before. So they're not I don't think they're necessarily bankers as far as excellence goes, but they are, if they can click, I think they'll be brilliant.
It's a big thing to get that many players in. I think it's Burton. Are they on? I mean, I know they were. I think the high teens, aren't they, in terms of transfers now, or they haven't crossed over into the 20s, have they? But they're not far off. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Yeah, you mentioned Elliot Watt. Elliot Watt is literally top of my list. Is the first one that you think of for me when I think of League Two or League One, and then obviously got Ben Whitfield. Again, both of them, two players that we're gonna talk about it a bit more, but two players that were competing neck and neck to be in the team of the year for the last 2 seasons are now in the same team going into next season. And that's, I mean, look, Burton have obviously had that takeover and they've got some money to spend and they're spending it. So it's an experiment. It's going to go one or two ways. I can't wait to see how it does. It's going to be great.
And that, I mean, Gaz can chip in on this, but that takeover and Fleur Robinson's return, she's obviously come back from Wrexham as a family, but then this Nordic Finnish consortium that's come in happened it was at the end of the season, if not, the season was finished when all that happened. So it's really interesting, everything that went on in League One last season, but then the bits that have happened over the last few months. So what stands out for you guys if you kind of think back to, I don't know, the first half of last season and then going forward?
I think what stands out for me over the summer is that it's boom or bust for a hell of a lot of teams. Burton being one, Wycombe being another, relatively small teams, dare I say, that have got to do well this season because that independent regulator is going to come in and they're going to regulate spending, and teams like Burton ain't going to be able to do what they're doing. Interesting that they're spending on these League Two players. It's great to say that they were good in League Two, but Jack Diamond was good in League Two for Harrogate, crap for us. Charles Vernon was good for whoever he was at, Grimsby or Bradford. Of course he was. Sorry,
I'd have him back tomorrow
already because we've got Jack Diamond now as well. So. Yeah.
And do you know what? With the thing with Jack, he was playing for Lincoln with quite a lot on his mind, to be fair to him, but we didn't know. But Ali Smith's another who was at, he did it at Sutton, came to Lincoln and didn't do it. The step up's really big. So the landscape's changed. And, like big teams coming down are taking the headlines. Birmingham going to take the headlines because they're still spending like their top end championship. And a little bit of me wants to kind of go, God, I hope it fails. And then another bit of me thinks, well, you earn the money. Do you know what I mean? If it's Fleetwood doing it or Birmingham or Wycombe, you can kind of go, well, you're overinflating prices and getting players to move to crap clubs with respect. I say with respect, there's no respect. But if it's Birmingham, they're a big club. And everyone wants, and Huddersfield are a big club and Charlton are a big club. So there's a lot of big clubs that look like they're in a good position this season. But there's also, I did a 1-24 the other week. And like my first thought was like Lincoln on 13th, 14th, and that will be an improvement, although we will have dropped down with all the spending. And then actually you begin to expect it. Barnsley have lost half of their squad and Darryl Clark's been sacked at this level before. Peterborough barely have a defence. Blackpool are going to be relying on a 154-year-old Jordan Rhodes up front who's got bones made of ready brick. Do you know what I mean? And when you start to dissect it, actually, you look at teams like, and I'm not just saying it as a sycophant, you look at teams like Stockport that have kept a lot of their team together. You've got that kind of that momentum going, really good signings. They'll do well. They'll do better than Wrexham because Wrexham at the minute, I think, are trying to shift their philosophy. It's such a bag of unknowns. Every year, normally, you go into it and you know who's going to be bad and who's not. Outside of 5 or 6 teams this season, anybody could finish 6th or 7th, but equally they could finish 16th or 17th, and it wouldn't be a failure either way. So, it's odd.
We had it last year. Sorry, Anna. We had it, what you've just said there about League One, about it being sort of, I can't remember what you said, something or bust. What did you say?
Boom or bust.
Boom or bust.
Boom or bust. Oh, I like that. We had it last year in League Two with Wrexham, with Stockport. Mansfield are always big spenders in terms of wages. Like these clubs were going for it, and they had to go up, and they did all go up. And you look at a couple of us, Gillingham, that didn't, and like you said, they now need to go up this year. They've got to really go for it, because if they don't, they're going to have to step back. And you mentioned Wrexham there. They're a very, very good example, because their fans can't understand why they get grief for doing what they're doing, but Birmingham aren't when they're doing the same. And like you've just said there, Birmingham have got the infrastructure to do it. Birmingham are a mid-table to top-end championship team with a mid to top-end championship infrastructure. Wrexham are a top-end, probably top-end League One team in terms of quality on the pitch, but they are a lower-end League Two infrastructure that runs on volunteers, that runs on people just basically giving up their time. They don't have that infrastructure because they've rushed, and that's why people can see it. And we can see the cracks, like when they've all been kicking off about this fan zone tickets thing, and I don't know if you've seen it, Gaz, at all, but they've put this temporary stand up, and half of it is for it's fan zone exclusive. To buy a match ticket in there, you have to also purchase a ticket to the fan zone. So it's extra. So people are kicking off saying they're being priced out of it. And it's like, well, you're spending money like a championship club. They have to make that money back. And this is what we said would happen eventually. They would stop just funneling money in and they'd start having to try and level out. And this is how they're doing it. And actually, the first game of the season, they've hardly sold any of those tickets. It's completely like, I could go buy a ticket to watch Wrexham right now, whereas last season you couldn't get one. Wrexham fans couldn't get tickets, and now people are kind of going, no, this is bullshit. This club aren't what we wanted it to be, and it's changing. And it's like, yeah, we can see
why. Food offerings aren't local. That's, you know, they've had this opportunity, but they're capitalizing on the tourist Wrexham fans. So the people who don't go week in, week out, which is fine as long as it's not at the expense of the people that have been there. And you know, we've talked to lots of Wrexham fans over the last year, particularly, who have seen their club in dire straits and have stuck by them and are incredibly local and proper stalwart fans. So it's, but yeah, they're quite similar. I'm seeing similarities already between Wrexham fans and Birmingham fans in terms of that sense of entitlement almost, because they, you know, Tom Brady, the Robin Ryan thing, it's I think it'll be interesting. Whereas I don't know, I'm kind of amused by the Birmingham fans because you can't really argue with it. They're throwing money at it. They thoroughly expect to have an easy run. And I'm a bit like you guys, I kind of almost want it to go wrong just for the entertainment value, but at the same time, just let them, and I said this about Wrexham last year, just let them do their thing and get out of the league and leave it back with everyone else. This time last year, you predicted that Oxford were going to be your dark horse, and we all kind of rolled our eyes and were like, well, they've had one good signing and, you know, okay, maybe. And you were right.
That was with us, wasn't it, Hannah? That was me and you on the podcast with Gaz. That was us three together when he said it. And we both went, oh. Is he going to make another wild prediction tonight? Is that what
this is what I'm like gearing up for? Gaz's dark horse prediction for 2024-5.
Okay, I've got two. The first one is absolutely based on a takeover happening. But if Reading get taken over, we're talking top six, because Ruben Selles was superb manager for them last season. What they did with the points deduction was outrageous, because they should never have been as high up the table as they were. Really had they've got a good squad there. They've got some good players like Sir Harvey Nibbs and Lewis Wing and players like that. If Rob Couhig, however you want to pronounce it, however Rob wants me to pronounce it, I don't know. But yeah, if he gets his money into the club in time for them to sign, then we're talking top six. Outside of that, my surprise struggler would be Barnsley, because they struggled massively towards the top end of last season. It's easy to blame Neil Collins for that, but he put them in the top six. To begin with, they were doing relatively well. They have lost a bulk of their players, a bulk of their squad. They've lost so many good players. They've lost players that weren't even that good, but were key to what they do, like Devante Cole, who I thought was massively overrated. But obviously Herbie Kane wasn't overrated. They haven't replaced that. Darryl Clark might be a really nice guy, right? But my wife's lovely, but I wouldn't have a manager in Lincoln City. And with Darryl Clark, I just think they've gone slightly in the wrong direction. You know, he's failed at this level before with Port Vale and Bristol Rovers. You would think, oh, he's at a big club now, but he's not, because your own being a big club's only relative. And as we've just said, Birmingham are bigger and Charlton is big. And, you know, there's teams, there's Huddersfield, Rotherham are going to be kicking about Blackpool. It's going to be massively tough. So Reading to be promoted, Barnsley to be relegated.
Gaz, who would you have in charge of Lincoln, Darryl Clark or your wife?
My wife, because then I could pull the strings.
Because
I don't get a chance to at home. Do you know what I mean? So it could be one of those role reversals. Yeah, she'd be brilliant.
Where did Bolton go from their I mean, I suppose technically went one better last season in terms of the final, playoff semis the year before. Where do they go now? Because I would have sacked Ian Evatt.
No, they honestly, they were the second best team in the division in every aspect, apart from where they actually finished, which I know people go, "Oh, the league table doesn't lie." They were better than Derby, and it's circumstances transpire. Sometimes, the league table doesn't lie, but sometimes you don't get probably what you deserve. Ian Evatt is a man that I despise because he's good at what he does. They are a team of, am I allowed to say arseholes on there? Because that's what they are. They know all the tricks in the book. They're proper shithouses, but they're really good at playing football as well. They can switch it and turn it just like that. He's got a good squad. There's more to come there. He was talking a couple of weeks ago about putting 7-figure bids in for players. My tip for the top two are Birmingham and Bolton, and I see them being kind of clearer thinking that. So, I definitely wouldn't have sacked him. I think if you finish third and don't go up through the playoffs, whilst it's not really seen as success, it is success because you finished third, and the playoffs are a little bit of a lottery, and you do get these freak results like Peterborough and Sheffield Wednesday a couple of years ago. So for me, he
Hannah was
fails
on the pitch at that game, by the way. Hannah pitching.
Was she really?
Yes, she went. Yeah, somehow.
It was when I was in my upskilling to League One phase.
So she ended up on the pitch.
I'll be honest, when Peterborough got beat, I would have run to Sheffield to get on the pitch myself to celebrate, I think. So I hope Keelan, our friend Keelan, isn't watching this. So, but I think
he was, because we were texting. Actually, we were texting that night, weren't we, Hannah? When he was Keelan was sending us texts from it. You just said there, obviously, he finished third, and from finishing third, didn't succeed in the playoffs. Is this a make or break season for him, do you think? Do they have to go up? Like, because if you look at League One, since they came back up from League Two, they finished 9th, 5th, 3rd. They've improved every year. The only improvement they can make now is promotion, whether it be automatic or whether they win the playoffs. If he doesn't go up this season, is this it? Would they have to make a change next summer, do you think?
It would depend, I think, on how they failed. So I think if they finished 10th, absolutely. I think if they finish third again, with like Leeds finished third in the Championship, do you know what I mean? With like 90 points and would have won it any other year, and then they get beat by Lincoln in the playoff final, here's hoping, then you probably don't sack him. Because I do think responsible owners are willing to sometimes take a step back. And it's easy to say, would that be a step back? But actually, League One is much more competitive this season than it was last season. There are more teams spending money. There's more competition for players. So whilst Bolton may well have improved, they could actually have gone backwards in terms of where they sit in the spending table. So this season particularly, I think, is a real outlier. It's like I said, it's about Lincoln. Like, we finished 7th last season. If we finish 11th this season, technically that feels like a step forward. With what's come up in every instance, bar Crawley, is better than what's gone down, and what's come down probably in every instance, bar Portsmouth, is better than what went up. So I think it's going to be a challenge for everybody.
Oh, I think you're understating Crawley a little bit there.
Tipped him for relegation last season.
So Gary hasn't learned the lesson that I learned.
Did you see Scott Lindsay's interview?
Yep. Yeah. We got mentioned. The real AFL got mentioned. Which is brilliant. Because we all season, like, I was poking at Hannah, going, Hannah, he's done this because of you. Because Hannah was in the article, she predicted that we're going down. Like, he's done this because of you. But honestly, like, Crawley, and I was going to ask this question anyway, but I'll ask you both it. Crawley's kind of strategy for last season was to find gems who statistically performed well but kind of went under the radar because it wasn't statistics that you look at as a fan. So you look at Horsey at Grimsby. If I'm looking for a striker, I look for someone who can score goals. And at Grimsby, he wasn't scoring goals. They signed him off of the back of his contribution, his XG, and they basically looked and said, if he can just fix this little part, the XG's there, the goals will come. And obviously they got him doing it. Horsey's now left, but they looked at doing that, and they brought players from the National League. They even brought players from the National League South, and we all wrote them off because of it. They've stepped up a league, but they've still kept that. So they've lost a hell of a lot of players. In fact, I think it's 9 out of the 11 players that played in the playoff final, but they've replaced them
with players from, well, aside from the Camera who's signed tonight, I think every one of them's come from below. So they're still doing that. They're dipping back. They're bringing players in, hoping that they can perform. Do you think that strategy will work in League One as well as it worked? Not even necessarily as well as it worked in League Two, because they don't need to have the same season. Crawley just need to survive. Do you think it's enough, or it'll work well enough for them to survive in League One, or do you think they're nailed on to just come straight back down?
I think they're nailed on to come straight back down. I don't think it's a bad philosophy, but I think you have to have everybody buying into it. And I haven't seen Scott Lindsay talking about a single one of these signings. I haven't seen tonight's, in particularly glowing terms. So who is pulling the strings, who is signing them? You can do it in League Two and maybe get a little bit of success, but if they're coming up into League One, they were playing nice football, as I understand it, last season. They were trying to pass it around a little bit, trying to play a bit of possession-based stuff. You're going to be coming up against teams who are spending millions of pounds on players. Even you're going to come up against teams like us. We're happy now to spend 100,000. It doesn't sound a lot, but it's a massive place for us to be in. If you were employing that tactic, the players that you need to be signing are ones that statistically are unproven but have come from League Two and are regular in League Two. I'm just not sure. I think it's a wise philosophy, but I think you have to mix it. Brentford made a success of it, basing their purchases on XG. You look at Ollie Watkins, was it Ben Rama? I think was there. There was a couple of others. They signed Fosu and I can't remember, Shandon Baptiste from Oxford. But Peterborough levels now. Peterborough have done it. They've gone and got Chris Con-Clark, and they've got the boy from Rochdale.
Never.
Never. So I'm not so sure. I've got Crawley as nailed on going down, not finishing bottom, but nailed on going down. I hope they prove me wrong, because I would love that philosophy to be a success over a Burton Albion, for instance.
And I think for you as well, Scott Lindsay, I'm a massive fan of Scott Lindsay, a huge fan, and obviously he's tried it before. This is his first real success as a manager, I suppose. But like, Scott Lindsay just has something about him where you want him to succeed. Like towards the back end of last season or going into those playoffs, like I've never seen anything more dominant in a playoff campaign at any level than what Crawley did in those 3 games. It got boring. It got boring to watch. Like the playoff final was so dull because you just knew what was going to happen. I think, were you in America, Hannah? Had you gone away?
No, I was on the trophy tour.
She was on the oh yeah, because guys, I don't know if you know, she's been on this trophy tour where she's been going around with the League Two trophy everywhere. And yeah, no, it's. I
thought Wrexham won the league.
Oh, you would think that. That's a common misapprehension. But my favourite episode of television ever is the one where they don't win the league. So
which time when they didn't win the league?
Both of the times.
Both times where they lost the league to Stockport. Both of those times. It's look. I think I want Crawley to succeed. When you said there who's pulling the strings, it's quite telling that Preston stepped away. So obviously Preston and Eben were the 2 chairmen. Preston stepped away. It kind of went a bit wild and everyone was leaving. And then all of a sudden, Eben left and Preston came back. And since Preston came back, it's the departures have stopped. So
and the
maybe he was
players that left in that window were not at all complimentary about what was going on at the club then. So Preston is very much the steady pair of hands.
And he always has been.
Yes.
And when he stepped down, it was one thing that I said right now at that point, Eben was in sole control. And that, as someone who's met Eben, I'm not a Crawley fan, but that scared me because he obviously he's not involved now. He was batshit crazy. In a good way, like as well, like not he's not afraid to take a risk.
Is it what? Crazy in a good way as a football manager? Is the football that's all right, is it?
So I think it all depends. Like if you can have batshit crazy in a good way. You look at it's Barry Fry, isn't it, at Peterborough? He was batshit crazy, but it worked. It can work. The issue is that Eben was very, very much like someone who we know, who, when it went wrong, it wasn't his fault. It was everyone else's fault, and he would stick to his guns. And that's that's the negative of it. It could have worked if there was just someone there alongside. And at the time, it was Preston, and that's why last season it worked. But then when Preston stepped away, it was like, yes, here we go. Now it's my club. And what was it, 3-4 weeks? That's all it lasted. And Preston just went, down back, you're gone.
And that was, the last season for Crawley was transformational off the pitch as well, in terms of Wagme's took a step back. It was more about Scott Lindsay. Scott Lindsay was making the decisions. Decisions were all football led. And it was less about talk about the Wrexham circus, but the Crawley circus the season before was incomparable in terms of the Sidemen link up, all the NFT stuff, the way that they completely alienated a new fan base as new owners. What?
I was part of all of those things.
I
was the first person to find out about the Sidemen live on their. They brought me on their podcast to reveal it live to get my reaction, and I remember afterwards they just said that reaction wasn't what we thought it was going to be. Because I think I just looked and I just went, "That is the worst idea I've ever heard in my life." And to be fair, it wasn't. It wasn't.
In retrospect, it was marketing genius.
Well, do you know, it wasn't, because they didn't get anywhere near.
Well, no,
they made no money off of it. They made no money off of it. They lost money off of the thing, the Sidemen thing. But it wasn't the worst idea I'd ever heard, because if implemented right, it could have worked. But they should have stopped. It's fine getting the Sidemen involved and saying, "Come down and train," but telling them that they can play in the FA Cup, that was the step too far. Because, and I said at that point, you're disrespecting the oldest cup tradition in the world. And they've had to learn a lot, but they promised that in 2 seasons they would get Crawley promoted. And season 1, how batshit crazy is it to think that at the end of that first season, we didn't just predict them to go down. I didn't think there'd be a Crawley this right now. I thought Crawley would be gone. And they've gone from that to essentially, they took a step back and then launched forward and got promoted. And now they're going into League One, and it's going to be hard for them. I hope they stay up. I love Scott Lindsay. I think he's a great manager. He was so harshly treated at Swindon. I've been so public about it. I still argue with Swindon fans about it now because they won't admit that they were wrong. But I think Crawley will surprise a hell of a lot of people, because you've got clubs like Birmingham who, they're a big club. They've got to go down to Crawley's ground, and it's a shock. It's a shock. I think when you rock up there, it's not a nice club really to go visit. It's not. It's a shit hole, to be honest.
Better, and we'll get on to grounds in a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, Crawley beat us. I think we lost to them once and then drew with them. They can be. I mean, they're missing Corey Adai now, which was significant. I mean, he was the highest number of stops. That's not the highest number of saves per goalkeeper in League 2 last season, which can be attributed to the state of Crawley's defence at times. Yeah. But they're starting from scratch. Right, just before we move on, we mentioned Reading before. Are things at Wigan calmed down? Because this time last year, they were still dealing with the previous owners and the legacy wage bills that they had. Have things settled down there as well?
Yeah, it definitely seems so. We had Barry Worthington from the Wigan podcast. I can't think what it's called off the top of my head now. Really knowledgeable guy. There was a lot of trouble for them in the early part of the season. Another team who did phenomenally well, by the way, overturned the points deficit. Had they not had that points deficit and had they not had the off-field trouble, there would be no doubt in my mind that they would have been knocking on the door of the top 6 and may have snatched Barnsley's place on the final day. Really well-organised team. They've made some good signings over the course of the summer. I think Sean Maloney and Tom Huddleston are there, and they've gone back to pick up somebody who was with them at Hull. Again, I haven't done any research. His name escapes me, but I did the research and talked about it on another podcast. But it's been a long day. They're just a really decent side. I was chatting to name drop Tendai Darikwa the other day, just signed for Lincoln, about Sean Maloney, and he just said he's a great manager. So I fancy them probably more so than Reading to be in the top 6. I know I made my bold prediction, but that's based on a lot of what ifs. There aren't really very many what ifs at Wigan. It's more they're in a position now to go and do it. And if they hadn't beaten us at Sincil Bank a couple of games in before the end of the season, we would have been in the playoffs as well, although we were robbed that day by a linesman guessing whether a ball had gone out or not. So still a little bit bitter about that. He couldn't see. You couldn't see. It was honestly, he wasn't level. He wasn't up with play. Cross has come over. Joe Taylor has knocked it back into play and we've scored. And he's flagged for it going out of play. But there's no way to see because he's on the opposite side looking across through a thing of players. And for me, if you guess, you're in. But anyway, that wasn't Wigan's fault.
So I weirdly, I was talking about that, something similar to that on the Fools Rushing Swindon podcast on Friday, because I don't know if you know this, guys, and I know Hannah knows this. So I randomly the other week ended up refereeing a football game, and after it, because I really enjoyed it. Did you not know that, Hannah?
No.
I'm sure how much you pay attention, Hannah. I ended up refereeing a football game. I had a friend who was manager's aside, and he rang me saying, "Can you referee for us tonight?" And I was like, "I've never refereed in my life, but we've got a friend who works for PGMOL." So I spoke to him, and he was like, "Look, just go for it, enjoy it. I've got cards, I've got everything." So I went and did it, and then afterwards, I was like, "I really enjoyed that." So Hannah, I've done the course, by the way. I'm waiting to do the last part now, so I'm going to be in a referee, like as in I. But one thing that he said to me on that night, and this is what. Like it makes you wonder with what that Lino did there, is that it was more about offsides, but it was, if it looks like an offside, if it smells like an offside, call it offside. Because if that ball had gone out, or whether it hadn't have gone out, if that linesman flags and they give a throw in or it's a corner, I don't know where it was, but whatever he does, no one is going to remember that decision based on him calling it out. If he lets it go on and they score from it, everyone will remember it. And that was the thing. If it's an offside and you're not sure if it's an offside, call it as offside, because it'll stop play. If you let them score and then it turns out it was onside, it was offside, everyone is going to remember that. That's going to be the decision. Yeah.
The issue here was we scored and then the flag went up. So we actually got the goal and we needed to win in order to cement the playoff place. So it wasn't like the ball's gone out and then plays continued. Yeah, it's come over. He's pulled it back. So literally he stood by the post. It's come across the goal and he's going out for a goal kick. And he's literally hooked it back in from almost next to the post. And then someone's come in the 6-yard box and put it in the back of the net. And the linesman's flagged and he's on the other side. So he's got 2 posts and the packed goal mouth between him. So do you know what I mean? It's not like it might have gone out for a throw in and he's flagged and then we've played on and scored. The ball's gone in, everybody's cheered, and then the flag's gone up. And at first, everyone said, well, is it offside? But it couldn't possibly have been offside from all the players stood on the goal line. And afterwards, obviously, they all said, oh, well, it's gone out. And then we ended up losing the game. I think that would have put us 1-0 up. I think we ended up losing 1-0 or 2-1 off the top of my head.
That's a. I wouldn't even know where to go with that. Like, what would you? No. What would be the right call there? I mean, obviously, if you can't
flag down, let Lincoln win. That's the right call.
That's possibly, and I'm not accusing you of bias here, but that could be bias, Gary. There,
it sounds biased, doesn't it? It does, but yeah, it's really
it might. I mean, I'm not sure whether it's the photo behind you of the Lincoln player or the 2 signed Lincoln shirts up on your wall, or the thing at the side of you that's hanging on your filing cabinet. It could be something to do with them.
It could be the effigy of the linesman hanging from my gate outside that I kick every time I walk past.
Yeah,
and to be fair, do you know what? I complained a little bit about that.
Biased.
But we got away with one because obviously there was the tragedy at Leyton Orient when they were winning 1-0 and the guy passed away, and rather than just call the result, we played again and we won 1-0. So in fact, these things even out over the course of the season, don't they?
Yeah, that was a wild thing. And to be fair, I think I remember when they announced that they were going to replay it. It didn't make sense to replay it. It should have just been, look, it's done. Let's Anyway, yeah. So that Anna, now you know. I thought you knew. I thought you knew that. No. I've done the first 3 modules and I'm now waiting to do the last one, and then that's it. I'll be fully qualified. But yeah.
Wow. This feels karmic. Anyway, Just before we move on, Gaz, hopes and dreams for Lincoln this season.
It sounds obvious to say playoffs, but I think it's a reasonable hope. I think we'll fall short because although we've moved forward, I think that the league has moved forward a little bit quicker. But look, we lost 1-2 games after January the 1st, one of those being against the champions on the final game of the season where we're having to push forward. We're maybe a centre forward short at the minute. We've already gone into the division, going into the first game against Burton with 4 or 5 injuries already, but we've got a deeper squad, we've got a better squad, we've got a good coaching setup. So I think realistically, knocking on the door of the top 10 for a 3rd season in a row would be a huge achievement. And if we do sneak into the top 6, then you never quite know.
I don't want to boast, but we've got 12 injuries already. So,
yeah, but your injuries right now don't matter, Hannah, because you as a team don't actually start your season until October.
Yeah, November.
You'll notice this, Gary. You'll notice this with Stockport. They will have a horrific start.
Yeah, we will lose on Saturday because we don't ever win on opening day.
And Charlie has
Luis Fiorini injured.
Yeah,
that's no surprise.
Yeah,
great footballer, but again, legs are Weetabix, honestly.
They injured. They end up this, and they do it every year. They have a horrific first 10 games and then just seem to turn it on. And this is what, for me, annoyed me about us last season. We sacked Mark Hughes after 11 games. We were sat above Stockport. They stuck with their manager. We got rid of ours, and they won the fucking league.
We won 17 in a row, though.
But that shows how it can just, for any team, it can. You just find that right formula, and it works. And yeah.
Was there anything like you talked about from January onwards? What was there anything kind of seismic that happened to change those fortunes? Or
yeah, we got strikers. So September the 1st last season, we signed Jack Vale on loan from Blackburn, but he may have been injured, but we'd take the risk because we've got Tyler Walker, we've got Ben House, and then September the 3rd, they were both ruled out until after Christmas. So we were playing wingers up top. Hakeem Delican played up top for us. We sacked Mark Kennedy. Michael Scabala came in, but we were still Saturday, Tuesday, and it was really hard. We lost to Blackpool on New Year's Day. We then we missed the FA Cup first 3rd round weekend because Shrewsbury somehow had got through to the 3rd round of the Cup. So we had 10 days on the training pitch. Freddie Draper came back. Jack Moylan we signed. Joe Taylor joined on loan. And all of a sudden we had an attacking impetus. It still took 3 or 4 games. I think the first 3 games we played were Wickham, Derby and Peterborough. And we drew all of them. And, you'd rather win 1 and lose 2 than draw 3 because at least you've got a win to celebrate. And then we just took off. Rico Hackett came back from injury. And then the injury started again. We started losing midfielders, Conor McGrandles, Ethan Hamilton injured. And we still fought through. So a lot of it's got to be down to Michael Scabala. Chris Cohen came in as assistant head coach around that time. He's gone now, but I just think it was Michael Scabala's input kind of taking effect a little bit. So that's what I want to think, because if that's the case, then we'll start this season well. But remains to be seen.
So thinking about off the pitch, I mean, do you go to away games? I should have asked you this when I was talking about kind of what we were doing. Do you go home and away, or are you
I go to away games, but I go maybe 5 or so times a year. Depends on when and where and all that sort of stuff.
So which, if you could choose 3 to go to in terms of grounds, clubs, whole match day experience, which would you recommend?
Well, I quite like Shrewsbury, and I shouldn't
Did not expect that at all.
No, because it's on the edge of town. The parking's crap. But I played on the pitch, which I kind of quite like as a mascot, not as me.
It's practically Wales.
Yeah, but they've got a decent fan zone, and I don't know. There's just something about Shrewsbury as a club that I quite like. I really like. You're not going to believe this one either, but there is a reason behind it. Burton Albion.
Yes.
The reason I picked Burton Albion, first of all, we have a supporters bus called Andy's Bus that goes 5 or 6 times a year, and we always stop when we go to the likes of Burton or Port Vale. We somehow end up in places like Uttoxeter for a few drinks beforehand. But with Burton, it's quite a good place to go for a drink. And I don't know what it is about. If you take good numbers to Burton, you're louder than the home fans. You outnumber the home fans. And for me, that's a better away day. People will go, oh, it's really good we get to go to St Andrews. Oh, yeah, it's brilliant. 20,000 Birmingham fans, and you're stuck up in the top corner, and then all the noise in the world won't drown them out. So I quite like that. And with that in mind, the final one, again, is probably one that people will shoot me down for, but it's Cambridge. And again, the ground feels quite 80s with respect to Cambridge. But by that, I mean, it feels quite old school. Like there's 4 different stands and it feels quite like still part of the people. You're not walking into this identical closed-in stadium like, let's say, Rotherham, for instance. I mean, Rotherham Stadium's not actually as bad as some of the newer ones, but you get what I mean. Cambridge as a city is quite cool. It's a little bit out of town, but actually, if you're in town, it's not typically a football place. But when we go on Andy's bus, we pitch up at St Ives at 9 o'clock in the morning, and there is nothing like climbing off a bus, half cut at 9 o'clock in the morning to a quintessential Cambridgeshire market town. The bus got stuck in the marketplace, kind of at like an angle. We're all piling off, and there's people going, "What's going on here?" Do you know what I mean? Shaking their things. So they're pretty good away days. And I know you only said 3, but Stevenage as well. But only because it's an old style ground.
Yeah.
Good numbers, you can be really loud. And again, drinking in Stevenage is quite good. There's a few decent pubs and that. So I prefer those games that remind me of going to League 1, League 2, Division 3, Division 4 games back in the day, rather than the big stadiums and that sort of thing.
Proper football.
Which is funny. But because I'd imagine I think most county fans, probably Mansfield and Crawley, not so sure about Wrexham, will prefer, they're looking forward to the Birminghams, the big shiny stadiums, because it's different to what we've had at like Sutton and Colchester. And
you've had to deal with the likes of Fylde and teams like that. That's the thing. You've been to that complete opposite end of the scale.
Yeah,
North Ferriby. I just sit in a tree at North Ferriby to watch the game. There's the one end of the thing you can get out into like a little playground type thing, and the only way I could see was to climb into a tree branch to watch half of the game.
And that's like, but those are the experiences, aren't they? And like I've mentioned it for you, Hannah, like obviously Bradford Park Avenue, and so many Stockport fans that I've spoken to hate going to Bradford Park Avenue. I love when we play Bradford Park Avenue. I love that little ground because it's so unique. Gateshead is another.
Yeah, the difference is, I think now, were we to play there would be that kind of nostalgia. But when you're playing there because you've got to, and they're at the same level as you, and you lost to whoever it was, not Salisbury. Like the week
Colwyn Bay.
Yeah. Yes, Colwyn Bay.
Yeah.
And Vauxhall, and all these, like Steve Bellis, who's a presence. Like Vauxhall isn't even a place; it's a factory.
Well, it's kind of a humbling for you. It's this is where you are now.
Yeah.
Thing, isn't it? With them,
this is your level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huddersfield are in the Premiership. You used to play with them in the same league, but this is it.
But you do now. You're back with them.
Yeah, I know. I'm quite excited about it. Huddersfield was my first ever county game, so I feel like everything's evened itself out.
Mine was Hartlepool. My first Lincoln game was Hartlepool. As a punishment for being caught swearing by my dad, which was a little bit by being punished, being caught drinking and getting punished by being taken to the pub.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, you mentioned Burton there. It was only a couple of weeks ago, Hannah, when we were recording. I mentioned Burton to you. I love Burton as an away day. It's the ground is almost identical to Salford. In terms of like it is a Salford City ground. It's weird. It's one of those ones that is kind of like a replica. But I was saying that it's not just the ground; it's around the ground, because it's like a complex, isn't it? And they've got that big AstroTurf or 4G pitch next to it, and there's always things going on there. So they have like their own little community foundation who have things going on, and then on the pitch you have the kids, and they're all playing five-a-side, and there's stuff going on outside. So it's a good experience. It's something that's quite unique for this level. You don't really see that. Crawley do it, but it's kind of just left to do its own thing. So like Crawley have that pitch behind the home end behind the goal that's open, but it's not really run by anyone. It's kind of just there for kids to go on and play. Whereas Burton actively encourage people to come and get involved, and that's what I took away from that. I really enjoyed being at Burton, and they did a cracking chip butty, which is so. And Hannah, you know that I'm so picky on chips at football grounds. Burton's chip butty was great. Yeah, I'm
really nervous though about the food offerings because I feel like I'm continuously burnt by really hot chips that are frozen inside, but also people talk about their club and their ground and how amazing the food is, and then you get there and you realize that their experience is based on reasonably them being home fans. Yes. So I'm going to be really, really disappointed if at Wigan I can't have the pie in the, do they call it a Wigan butty or something?
A Wigan kebab, isn't it?
A pie in bread.
In bread.
Like,
yeah, which they do at Rochdale as well.
Do they? Oh yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that actually.
There's one thing that is a home end. Well, there's guys, you might like this as well. There's one thing, and it is a home end exclusive, is Huddersfield and their roast potatoes with slow cooked beef and gravy over the top of it. Yeah, so I've said to Hannah that when we'll go this season in the press home end, we'll go in the home end.
You do realise though that it's our like Boxing Day game.
Yeah, it won't be that game, Hannah, I can promise you now. But at some point this season we will go in the home end. But honestly, if you get a chance to, guys, like the they don't do them in the away end, but the roast potatoes with, it's like chunks of slow cooked beef just draped over top with the gravy. It is like, it's a different level. Like, it's so good.
I'm going to ruin the podcast now. Never ever eat food at a football ground. Ever. I'll eat beforehand, but I never eat at a ground. If I go away, I've usually been drinking all morning and I don't want to eat. And at home, I wouldn't touch. We've gone in-house now, so it may have changed, but I wouldn't have eaten what Lincoln have been offering. I'll eat outside the ground. We have like a Curry Jack's van, and we have a bratwurst, and we have all sorts of really good stuff, but I do not eat. They're probably on a match day. The only thing that I eat prior to a game, and it's the worst food ever, is a Wetherspoons breakfast.
Guys, 90% of our match day experiences between me and Hannah is about the food. Like, so with Salford, we do a lot of stuff with Salford, and Salford have their chips with like the Chinese curry sauce and
gravy, or Chinese curry, or cheese.
Yeah, and or all three if you feel like mixing it up a little bit.
Gravy, God,
yeah,
we've progressed from that, haven't we? As a human race,
no, we'll never progress from it. But you mentioned there about having the stuff outside the ground. Crawley, they have a bar, Reds bar, round the back of the home end, which is away fans as well. So this is something for any League One fans that are going. But outside Reds bar, they have a
wood-fired pizza.
Yeah, like a homemade wood fire pizza van. They have a fish and chip van. They actually have quite a lot.
And they've now got, I don't know if it was there last time you went. So Reds on your left, the pizza van on your right. You keep walking, and then it opens up into like a fan zone with a massive TV and a bar. And next to that is like a gourmet burger place with the best chips that I've ever had, possibly anywhere, let alone at a football game.
You'll have to come and try Curry Jack's at the Sinsel Bank fan zone, because genuinely our fan zone is phenomenal. I mean, it gets wall to wall, but it's not food there. We've got a beer van called the Tipsy Imp, and they actually did my wedding last year. They have all sorts of like different brews on every week and stuff like that. So it's funny, isn't it? Because we're talking about this. It just goes to show how much league football has improved over the last 5 or 6 years. All these clubs are offering all these different things. Yeah. And then you go somewhere like, I don't know, Mansfield.
Bradford. Bradfordshire. So this is, I've said this, and it's not just Bradford, it's an everything thing, but it's no longer enough. You mentioned there about Lincoln now bringing it in-house, so it may have changed, but like, I'm guessing you had a catering company that just used to do run-of-the-mill pies in the little plastic packets that you get. It's, for me, the price of football, and especially now we're going to see a hell of a lot more on Sky because of this new deal. It's no longer enough for football clubs to think that all they have to do is put a football match on. That there needs to be a better match day experience, and that's where clubs are going to fail, because you want people in your ground as early as possible spending money. You don't want people spending money down in the town and then coming in at 10 to 3, and then as soon as the game's over, leaving. You know, you look at these clubs, look at Crawley, like their fan zone and their Redspat, it's packed from about 12. Yeah. I know I say packed, they don't obviously get a lot of fans, but for their it's scaled down for them. Yeah, no, it's right, it's scaled down for them, but it's busy for what they've got. And it works, and it's like it's a full match day experience. I always use Man City as an example, and I know that's a silly example because it's Man City, but I don't know if you've been to the Etihad in the last few years. So they have outside that ground, and people always post pictures at 2:45 of the ground and go, "Oh, look, it's Man City. They're empty. There's no one here." They are there. They're outside the ground, and because they've got street food, they've got
Bolton has the same.
And it's like, for me, when I went there, that was the first time I ever really experienced like good away food or good food at a different ground. And I was like, so hang on a second, the football club doesn't just have to do burgers where the bread's hard on the bottom, pies that come out of a packet, and roll over hot dogs, because those things do.
Yeah, we have roll over hot dogs still.
And like, we are at that point now where people remember away games, not necessarily for the football. They remember the food. Like that's all we talk about. They remember the food. They remember what's available. Like you've just said there, you can name clubs where there's experiences outside of the football itself with ease. But when you try to think of other clubs that don't do it, you kind of can't. You're just cloudy because you just blank it all out. Like I can't think of a shit away day for food and stuff. I can't really place one.
Crew.
Oh, Crew's crap. The pubs are good in town, but
the ground's awful.
Sheffield Wednesday weren't great either.
Sheffield Wednesday. Well, I was in the home end, so it was decent. But yeah, I think I remember messaging Keelan and being like, "Oh, I've got all these options like pasta and pizza and jacket potatoes," and he was like, "Oh, I've got pies."
Port Vale sold out. Port Vale sold out at half time of the food, so I couldn't get anything. Morecambe, I seem to think, was half decent as well.
Yeah, but Morecambe have
really good pies.
They've got fish and chips just outside the ground of Morecambe as well, haven't they? And the other one is Grimsby. Like I knew Gary's face to do that. Yeah, Grimsby's home and away food is great, and it seems to be all the clubs down that way have got it right. Like you've said, like Lincoln have brought it in house. Once you bring it in house, you've got that control. But like when you've got somewhere that is, you know, a bigger city or a bigger place, and they've got all these local businesses around them that are available to just tap into. You know, it's so easy to say to them, "Why don't you come and do some catering? Why don't you do catering? You can have this kiosk and this stand on a match day," and they jump at it. But there's so many clubs that are so far behind.
There's a difference inside and outside the ground, because our problem is we don't actually have catering facilities in the ground. It's just like booths, so it's got to be preheated. It's got to be the pies and the burgers. Outside the ground, like you just say, got partnerships with all the local different food places. That's where it's at. It's actually at fan zones. The days of people eating in the ground at half time will soon be gone, because you can get better food options. People want choices, and a choice isn't, burger with cheese or not with cheese. It's, do you want curry with potatoes? Do you want your pasta? Do you want a bratwurst? Do you want this? Do you want that? It's all outside. First time I ever went to a fan zone, it was Wickham. It was our first game back in the Football League in August 2017, and it blew me away that's where football was, because last time we were in the Football League, we came down the same time, same year as Stockport, 2010-11. There was no fan zones. That really is something that's developed, and I think it has come from the likes of Man City. It has come from those people that probably desperately want to have a decent reputation, so they put all this stuff on for fans to mask the fact that they're doing whatever they're doing. But it has spread down, and now it's vital. Clubs that don't do it are losing revenue, and they're losing goodwill. So
And it's turning people away, because when you go on a bad run and you don't have anything other than the football to offer, people just won't come. Especially, like I say, now it's going to be available to watch so much more freely. Why would you in December, if you're on a 3-game losing streak on a Tuesday night, why would you go and sit in the cold when you could sit and watch the game at home, be warm, unless there was something else, something to drag you there? If you were like, do you know what, I'm going tonight because for my tea, I'm going to have this. And I know that going like Huddersfield, I used to get so excited when I could do Huddersfield on an evening. And I did Huddersfield versus Norwich, and I did Huddersfield versus Stoke, I believe it was, on Tuesday evenings. And I was so excited because I was like, I'm having roast potatoes. I'm having roast potatoes with this. And like, that was all that was in my head. I weren't even thinking of the game.
You are so Yorkshire.
Yeah, but that's like, it's like with, I'd always...
Get me right good.
But it is very good. So at Salford, I'd never had the chips, and Hannah had told me about it. I'd had chips in the away end and they weren't as good, but they didn't have the options. And Hannah was always like, you need to have these, you need to have these. So we were going to watch them play Peterborough last season in the Cup, and I'd not even paid any attention to the game on the way there. I wasn't thinking about the game. I was like, am I going to have it with gravy? Am I going to have it with... And that's like, and like that, but that's the thing. It's like, it's something else. Because I don't being brutally honest, I don't care who wins out of Salford and Peterborough. I don't care who wins out of Huddersfield and Norwich. I'm there as a neutral, but I tell you what, I care if that food's good or not. And when I know that it's going to be good and it hits, like, that's what it's all about for me. Football is secondary in some circumstances now.
I've just realised Salford chips was my birthday dinner last year.
And what a birthday dinner it was. Were you disappointed in any way, Hannah, with your birthday chips?
Except I feel like I got it was bitterly cold that night, wasn't it? And I feel like I got a bit distracted, and then they were cold, which is a problem at Salford.
You were on TV a lot, weren't you, that night? I think, was that the game that was on TV? There was a game where you were on TV.
Comms. We
did comms at Salford Stockport.
No, it was Salford Peterborough.
Oh, was that your birthday? Oh, happy birthday, Hannah, for that. Sorry. I was sat next to her the entire time. But in fairness, guys, we were doing right. So just to tell you what happened, we were doing comms, and it got to half time, and I looked at the recording. I was like, we'll do it in 3 parts. So obviously, first half, second half, and then if it comes extra time. Looked at the first half recording, and I was like, Hannah, your microphone hasn't picked up anything. Yeah, Hannah's microphone worked on for the entire half. So the entire half is me talking to myself and then laughing at my own jokes. But in reality, Hannah was
just normal.
Yeah, it is normal. Hannah was actually laughing at them, but you just couldn't tell Hannah was laughing. But yeah, like I say, there's a match day experiences now. Salford, I know it's League 2, but they have a live band on or live music on every game. And it's getting more and more towards being more family friendly. Like, you can take your family, like you can take people that don't necessarily follow football, and eventually, if they go at a time where you're on a good run and there's all this stuff that they are interested in, eventually they're going to be turned to the football, because it's kind of going to go hand in hand. But when you are on a shit run, like, why would you go unless there's something to entice you into going? It's so hard.
I've got to disagree with that, because I'd go and watch Lincoln if we'd lost 10 games in a row and it was a Tuesday night and it was cold. But
would you, if you were a new fan that was coming into it, and Lincoln are on a 10-game winless run, you've got.
I do get your point. Yeah, I get your point.
I've gone and watched my team when they've been on horrific runs, like I have done. But at the same time, I've sat there sometimes and thought, why am I here? Like, what am I doing? I know what's going to happen here. We've conceded very early again. Everything's flat, and I'm sat there thinking I could be at home right now. And I get that it's supporting your club, but like I said, everyone's got kind of a breaking point at some stage. There will be a, like, I know you said you'd go if you lost 10-0. But if you'd lost 15-0, that might be a breaking point. Like, you eventually you'd go, fuck this. Like, just even if it's just one game, you just go, I'm having a break this weekend. And like, yeah, So yeah, I don't know. I just, to be fair, I'm having a dig. I'm having a dig at clubs that don't make the effort because I think that they should. You've got fans there that are willing to spend money at your football club. Give them something to spend it on. Like that's
it's fair. Like since we introduced the courtyard, which has been there for a season and a half now, and it is only home fans. Before Charlotte's kickoff time completely screwed me over last season in the January, I would routinely be there at 1:30. Go, from I don't know, the previous season, maybe rock up about an hour later, but I'm in there for an extra hour, spending money, music, social kind of side of things. It completely changed.
We have
interviews with players. Yeah,
and
it's good.
It's like I say, it's a direction that football's moving in, and it's the right direction. There's a lot of clubs that kind of still need to go. We've got to do something here, and yeah, I think there's a lot of people that need to realise that it isn't enough to just expect the football to be the whole thing, and for it to be enough. Because when you are shit, if you're rock bottom of League One, if I was Carlisle last season, 30 games lost. It would have got to a point where I found it difficult to drag myself to games. I'd have gone, but it had been purely out of habit. It wouldn't have been like that feeling that you get every time you go to your club, or you want to have every time you go. It's difficult, isn't it?
So back to League One grounds, which is the most overrated away day, and why is it Blackpool?
No comment. People always seem to think, don't they, that going to Blackpool's phenomenal because it's this great seaside town. It's not. It's a dump.
It's a shithole.
Yeah, it's like, we'll go to Skegness away. There's more mobility scooters and whatever. Yeah, it's not for me. That
it's Grimsby with lights, Gary. It's Grimsby with lights.
Yeah. Do you know what? Grimsby don't even play in Grimsby, do they? It's Clee. Obviously, it's Clee, and Clee's not even that nice. I shouldn't say too much because that's the nearest football club to me, even though I'm a Lincoln fan. Do you know what? I think another one that's quite overrated is Reading, because I think people think it's going to be this great big ground, and it used to have Premier League football and that, but it's another one. It's all the things like industrial estate and nothing much around it and all that sort of stuff, which is what Burton, Wickham or whatever. But yeah, it's not that great. And Wickham's another. I talked about their fan zone, but it's on the edge of the Chilterns, and now that strange little pub's closed down. That was half strip club, half pub, and when you went in, you had to filter one way or the other.
No way.
I went there, honestly, like midday. I remember walking in there and walking into what looked like a pub, and a doorman puts his hand off and he goes, "Whatever you do, don't touch the girls." And I'm thinking, I have never had anyone say that when I'm walking in a pub. What sort of pub is this? And literally, you walk to the door, and they go, "Are you going right or left?" And I kind of peered round. It's like, well, I'm going left into the pub.
But what's the name of this pub, Gary?
I don't know. It's shut now, mate. It's closed down, I think. Nearly everybody who's been away to Wickham will know it. But the thing is, you could sit in the pub area, and it's just a big open pub, and you can see the strip bar through the other side. It was utterly bizarre, but that's closed now. So,
stop pub.
Not that I'm in for demeaning women or anything, but
no.
I hope Liv don't watch this and see my face during that conversation. I'm going to be
or your Google history when you're looking for bars in
strip clubs in Wickham. God, I'll never be allowed to go to Wickham away. If we won't get there, let's be honest.
It's a way off.
Chance to be a fine thing.
Well, I mean, maybe. Depends. If Gary's predictions are true, then it might be sooner than you think.
Right, they're not going down to the National League, are they?
Oh no, it's not bad. Ace, right? Well, thank you so much, guys. I feel much better oriented and ready for League One. I'm really glad that I won out in the Blackpool ticket lottery, and we're going there on the 17th of August. So that's something to look forward to. We look forward to our trip to Lincoln, although I think it's the one that I'm away for. Why are you shaking your head at me, Liam?
Because it sounds like you're wrapping up.
I am.
We haven't talked League Two players to League One.
I can hear my kettle going as well, so I am actually going to have to go.
Right, okay,
Sorry,
so we've got
we talked about Elliot Watt. It's fine.
just Elliot Watt. Right. So my only thing, and this is the only player
Right,
I wanted to
should we
comment
let Gav go? Thank you.
Yeah, you can go, Gary. I just need to tell Hannah.
It's nice to see you.
Thank you, Gary.
both. Thank you both for having me on, and I will chat to you again soon.
Good luck for the season.
See you later, sir.
Cheers, bye.
Hannah, I've not done 15 minutes of research here to not talk about
the one time
that I actually do research and it gets cut.
I'd like you to first tell the Barnsley fans what to expect from Davis Keeler-Dunn.
It's difficult because he's stepped up to League One before with Burton, and it didn't work for him. But that's obviously Burton, who were in a bit of a shitty situation off the field. There was a lot of turmoil. When Davis Keeler-Dunn is on it, you will struggle to find somebody better at what he does. He'll score you goals. He will win you matches on his own. And that's going to annoy Mansfield fans that we're talking about this transfer as if it's already happened. But if it happens, then I would be delighted as a Barnsley fan. If it's 700 grand, which is what's the reported number for a League One club that's been at that end of the table, it's a steal. Yeah.
And if I was a Mansfield fan, once I'd got over the disappointment of him going, he is but one player. They can make some. They've got time. It's the 6th of August. We've still got 3 weeks to go of the window. They've got time to use that investment to build their squad. I mean, Will Evans is signed today. He's not on a free. That's an undisclosed fee. Maybe potentially because they knew that they might have some budget. But yeah, we're right. Okay, so go on back to your 15 minutes of prep. So I asked Liam to contribute to the discussion on League Two players that are joining League One clubs and what to expect.
So I left out the players that were coming from League Two clubs to teams that were just promoted from League Two, because those fans will know who they are. So like Evans, stuff like that. Mansfield fans know who Evans is. So yeah, I kind of left that out there. But there's not actually, aside from Burton,
no, there's not.
There's not a lot. So Burton have got 5 players from League Two. So 6 players from League Two. So they've got Elliot Watt, Ben Whitfield, Armour from Carlisle. Carlisle fans were a little bit upset on that he left, but at the same time, I didn't really need to research that one because he was in League One last season, so they know what to expect. Harrison Biggins. Now, we've spoken so many times about Harrison Biggins. If you ask a Doncaster fan right now, if you're a Burton fan and you ask a Doncaster fan about Biggins, they will not really say anything positive. If you go back 3 months and ask them about Harrison Biggins, you will find not a negative comment about him.
No. But then if you go back some more, they'll be back to being negative about it.
Yeah. 3 months ago, 4 months ago, Harrison Biggins was a player that Doncaster believed they would build their team around one of those players, and he would be a standout player for them this season. Then when he left, all of a sudden it was as if he thinks he can make a step up to League One. But he was good enough for them to step up last season. So yeah, I would be quite happy with that. The one that and then they've also signed the lad from Notts County, the defender. Now I can't pronounce this. It's Bairami, B-A-I, something like that. Bairami. Yeah. Notts County's defence last season was their weak point. They scored a hell of a lot of goals, but they conceded shitloads. And
Baldwin and Bostock have both gone as well, haven't they?
Yeah, so Baldwin's come to us. Bostock's gone to Solihull.
Yes. I think it is. So yeah, that defence has kind of been shipped out. I don't think it's necessarily been that Notts County have lost these players whilst trying to keep them. Notts County have ripped this defence apart and said it wasn't good enough, and so that would be a kind of a thing for me to look at and go, well, he was in part of a really leaky defence. Maybe it wasn't his fault, but it's still there. But the one for me that I kind of don't understand as much is Adore from Harrogate to Peterborough.
And I'm basing that solely on his time at Rochdale last season when he's tight. I don't know if you've seen him play, Hannah. In fact, it was against you guys he played when I was there. I think you won 2-0 or 2-1.
Harrogate.
No. Rochdale. Not the season just gone, the season before. It was
I was going to say the
night.
season before. Yeah.
Tuesday night, you scored 2 goals in 2 minutes.
Yes. It was like February, I think. Yeah. I was on a cruise.
Yeah, so I was doing comms there, and so I was like, I saw it, and to be fair, you didn't deserve to win that. I'll be absolutely honest, but anyway, neither way. But he really, really struggled when it came to coming up against big defenders that kind of throw themselves about a bit, and you're going to see that in League One. Teams are going to bully, and it's going to become a lot more physical. And I just don't think. I know Peterborough have that model where they buy cheap and they sell a couple of years later, but every now and again they get a kind of a dud, don't they? They've had who was it that they kept of it? Was it Clark Harris? They kept hold of him until the end, and they ended up getting nothing for him.
Yeah.
I think that'll maybe be a similar situation. I just can't see it working. Not that there's. Look, I could be wrong. That's the one for me when I saw it. I was like, I don't think he's a step up to League One yet. Other than that, there's been some good players step up. Orsi going to Burton. We've spoken about Orsi. If they can get him to replicate what he did at Crawley, they're laughing. And then when you've got the likes of Whitfield and Elliot Watt just behind him, those two between them are going to. Well, I think over the last 2 seasons, between them have had over 30 goal contributions each season. Yeah. So if they can
and that's the thing, isn't it? It's about replicating previous success. So obviously, Dan Kemp's gone to Stevenage.
Yeah.
There's rumours that Jake Young might be following him from Bradford. They were very, very successful together at Swindon. They're both on loan, both recalled back to their parent clubs in January. But reuniting that partnership could potentially work wonders for Steve. Doesn't always work. Salford had Elwat and Carl Hendry, who were absolutely incredible this season before this one, 22-23. But yes, okay, 23-24, they were separately injured, but even when they were back together, there wasn't that same spark that there'd been. So interesting to see, definitely.
They never got the chance, I don't think, last season, because I think you say it was like El came in, El was out first, I believe, then Cal went out as El came back, and then El went out
in the same game.
First game back, wasn't it?
I can't remember which game it was, but I was there. Colchester, maybe.
Yeah,
anyway,
you went to Colchester. But it was so hard to kind of, I suppose, get any traction there because, like you said, when one was out, the other one was out. Jake Young and Dan Kemp. I can't. If Jake Young goes to Stevenage, for any Stevenage fans listening, I cannot overstate how good those 2 players were. And if you ask any Swindon fans, so look, if Jake Young signs for Stevenage and you want an opinion on him, don't go to Bradford fans. Go to Swindon and ask them. You take Jake Young and Dan Kemp out of that Swindon side the first half of last season, Swindon Town get relegated without a shadow of a doubt. They were, for the rest of the season, they were a relegation form team. Those goals and that form in that first half of the season from those 2. There was a point where Dan Kemp and Jake Young were the top 2 goal scorers in the league.
Yes, I remember.
And that's for a team that finished 19th. They had 2 of the top goal scorers in the league, and they finished 19th. Jake Young finished Swindon's top goal scorer, and he didn't play a game for them from January onwards. Like those 2 players together were magic, and they lived together. So like they had that relationship. That's similar to what Cal and El had. Like there's that relationship there. So look, I'm Do I want to see Jake Young leave Bradford? No, but I understand why if he gets the opportunity. I actually think, and this is going to sound weird because of what I've just said, Stevenage for me for League One are a team I think are going to struggle.
Well, they started incredibly well. And I remember last season talking to Matt Farley and him being like, this is the dream. We're third in League One. It's going better than we ever expected. We've got we've made incredible signings. This is what you need to do, Hannah, next season. If you go up, this is what you've got to do. You've got to,
get your manager.
You've got to do all of this. And then they just didn't sustain that momentum. And I guess that kind of makes sense, like with Gary saying about Lincoln kicking on like second half of the season. Stevenage just didn't. And then obviously at the very end have lost Steve Evans to where's Steve Evans gone? Rotherham, which
is a team, by the way, that hasn't come up tonight. Where I thought would have. I thought that would have been a big talking point for the, but
So that I think, it'll be interesting to see what Stevenage, how they respond under a new manager. Not done loads in terms of recruitment.
Yeah, and the other one for me, and it's just one that I've got down here. Obviously, Godwin Maleefi's gone to Burton as well from Swindon. That was one I didn't expect, but like you say, Burton are kind of.
Well, I heard they're starting a band and they needed a lead singer, so
they're trying the Crawley method. Really, they're doing what Crawley did last season. But Hutchinson from Walsall to Bristol Rovers is the other big one from League Two, and I know it doesn't seem like a big one in League One, but in terms of impact of what that player had for Walsall, like he was Walsall last season. He was what kept them where they were. And they didn't have a great season, but they would have had such a worse season if you took him out of it. And so for Bristol Rovers fans, that's a great signing. It's a very, very good signing. I won't bore you with the rest because, to be fair, there's a couple of Lincoln ones, but that was just for Gary to really talk about, if anything. And then there's Joel Senior as well, who's gone Morecambe to Bristol Rovers. Again, Morecambe, another club with so much going on off the field. It's hard to really tell what that player can offer because the club's completely off the rails last season. Maybe not this season if this takeover goes through, but it's hard to judge a player fairly when they've had that to go through. It'd be like judging Reading players, not taking into account everything that they've had to go through. Same with Swindon, which is weird because obviously Jake Young and Dan Kemp, mind you, they were on loan, so the issues with Swindon were getting paid and things like that. But Dan Kemp and Jake Young were paid by their parent club, so they were never affected by it. That's it. Just a little bit. It
was very, very detailed, very professional,
very Burton led.
Very Burton led, but I mean that's what we've seen throughout the transfer window. And them and Birmingham, you keep thinking they've stopped now, and then I think Birmingham signed someone else a couple of days ago.
Same with Rotherham though as well. Rotherham, you keep thinking they're done, and then they just don't. I mean, they'd signed like 7 players before most teams had even started.
They did go very early.
Some hadn't even released their retained lists.
Even
Rotherham had a new squad.
It's the way to do it because, well, unless you're Stockport County, in terms of you start early and then you have a team that's played together throughout pre-season, and then they're ready to kick on straight away, or you have 12 injuries and 2 of them even before they reported back for training, which is always fun.
You always have that, don't you? You always have that little.
Yeah,
you've got your injury crisis out of the way in pre-season this year.
I did say that on the SK3 TV pod yesterday. Except we've got time for another round, I feel. So,
absolutely. But Mansfield will have theirs as well. You've just got to hope that 4 other teams do a lot worse. That's all you need to do, because for you, it's about stabilising yourself as a League One club at this stage.
Yeah, and I think, the club has ambitions for the Championship by, I think it's 2027. This is, and Dave Challoner says otherwise. Like, he says that you shouldn't call it a consolidation season, because that implies compromise and settling almost. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. We've got.
I suppose that comes down to personal perspective, though, because Dave Challoner, as much as Stockport fans love Dave Challoner, there's going to come a time where he leaves Stockport County and he goes somewhere else, and Stockport County won't be his concern, but it'll still be yours. So for you guys, Dave Challoner will be looking at this and saying, I mean, look, we don't know how long he's going to be there but let's just say he stays at your club for another 3 seasons. You've got another 30, 40 years. So, like, for you guys, it's consolidation is fine, because you don't want to risk going backwards and go back to where you've been, because you've seen it. He wasn't there. He didn't go to the National League North with you. I know he's been there before, but you guys have been on that journey. And so for you to take 1 or 2 seasons in League One to build your team to then get yourself to the Championship, that as a fan, I think, is okay. As a manager, you don't want to do that. Why would you ever want to sit still? You want to push on. And if you feel like you can't push on, that's why you then look at moving on. Once you can't take that club forward, you move on. So, yeah, it's 2 completely different ideologies, I suppose, about how you run a football club or how you want to perform. Same with the players. It's a short career. The players do not want to waste. You can't afford as a player to waste a season. Yeah. So, yeah, you always want to perform.
All right. Well, we are back with proper, normal League One look podcast next week.
Yeah.
Harry, by that point, may be a shadow of the man he was previously, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We'll also, at some point, introduce the League One 606, which is brand new for League One and for us, but we've been doing it for League Two for the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, it started midway through 21, 22.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity for fans to, it's live, it's normally on Twitter as a space, so you don't need to worry about having your face on camera. It's literally just your voice, and it's an opportunity for fans to have their say, just like the Radio 5 kind of phone in. Which clearly doesn't devote enough time to the EFL. So when Liam and Grant started doing it, it was a
that's why we did it.
Yeah,
it was a middle finger to them. It was if you're not going to talk about the lower leagues, we'll do it ourselves. And it got attention because we were contacted by them within 6 months about the show potentially going to them, but it wouldn't work. We need that freedom. We've got freedom doing what we do. I can't wait for you to do the League One look. It's going to be quite. I want to just listen. I want to see it from a completely neutral perspective, because I don't care at all about what's going on in the league.
No, and I think it'll be interesting
to see the meltdowns,
because it's a format that hasn't really existed in League One before, and obviously, we're new to it, and we're new to League One, but we're used to it from League Two. Whereas I think there will be a bedding in period where it will just feel like a live podcast until we get people feel a little bit more comfortable with it. But we'll be sharing details of that very soon. Normally, it was always on a Sunday night, wasn't it, for League Two? But
so it's still going to be a Sunday for League Two.
Scheduling for
it'll be on the League One. It'll be on the League One book account as well.
Yeah.
So we can clash, but do you know what I can't wait for from it? And this is what I'm really excited to hear on the League One 606. It's when you've got Birmingham fans and Huddersfield fans and fans of all these League One clubs that haven't yet experienced it sitting there, and then you go, oh, we've got a Wrexham fan joining us. And they all expect to hear a Welsh accent, and they actually hear an Australian one.
Yeah.
That is going to be the one, because this is what those Wrexham fans that went through it with us last season have got to realise as well. They're starting from scratch again.
Yeah, they've got to make friends.
Yeah, well, they don't want to make friends, but they're getting to a point where it's going to be harder for them to steamroll. I mean, they didn't even steamroll anyone really in League Two last season. It's going to be a hell of a lot harder for them to do it this season.
Yeah.
This is going to be the first season where they most likely aren't going to be challenging. And I think for a lot of those fans, especially, and this isn't slagging them off, it's the way sport works across in other countries, especially in America, is that a lot of their sports are set up in a way so that everyone is competing for the main prize, because they don't do relegation.
No.
They don't do, in a lot of league sports, they don't do draws. So it's going to be hard if they hit that run and they're kind of sat 12th, 13th in the table and they're on a bit of a stale run. It's going to be difficult for those, I think. And that's where we're going to see the first kind of, well, this is shit, I'm bored of this. This isn't what I wanted. I want to see my club do it. And then it's going to be, how much influence do those fans across the pond and in all these different countries, how much influence do they have on decisions at the club if they start to turn their backs because they're not happy with what they're seeing on the pitch? That's the Wrexham story now, where it's heading, because they're going to hit a wall. How do people react when they hit the wall? I think at the beginning they'll pretend that it's fine, but eventually they're going to go, shit. And then I'll be like, come on, let's see what you do. Are you going to sack your manager because these fans are going to turn away? Because we're not talking about a small portion of fans now. No. We're talking about what they've essentially built the model around. They can't afford for them to turn their backs.
All things to look forward to. I'm more excited about League One this season than I was about League Two 2 seasons ago.
I'm not excited about any of it, really. From a personal perspective, I'm excited to go and watch football again, but I'm kind of wanting to approach the season without any real expectations.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. Yeah. I'm just defeated.
Who's your League One team?
Do I need one?
Yeah, I think you should have one.
Birmingham.
Oh God. I thought that you were going to say Crawley.
Hannah, I have watched my team stagnate in League Two for a long, long time. If you give me a choice of a team to follow in the league above that won't impact mine, I will choose the most obvious answer. No, do you know, I won't choose Birmingham. I'll go with I'm not going to go Crawley, because I do think that even though Crawley will surprise people, I don't think it'll be a great season.
No, it doesn't have to be a great season. It just has to be a club that you have like an affinity with, that you respect the game.
No, but at the same time, I don't want to have an affinity with a club that's shit. That's the issue. I've got that already.
This is the problem, isn't it? When you can choose a club versus being bought to a club.
Yeah. Do you know what? No, do you know what? I know my club. Leyton Orient.
Fair. Marshall.
Marshall. Yeah, I'm gonna text Marshall now and tell him that they're my League One club. But Hannah, we've actually got to go down to Leyton Orient to do the crossbar challenge as well.
Oh yeah.
So we need to get that done.
I'll find out when I'm famous.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a Monday because it makes it easier. We can go down
of
Sunday.
Course.
Yeah. So we can sort it. But I'll speak to Marshall. We'll try and get something booked in, and we'll get the crossbar challenge done, and we'll bring that back this season. Push on. But yeah, I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed doing League One. It's nice to see how the other half live.
Well, that's why I like doing League Two, because I can slum it for a bit. But but also, you're exactly right. It's nice to not have that kind of emotional. But we joke about me going to Salford, but that's why I enjoy going to Salford, because I have no emotional attachment to the outcome.
No, just the people that work there.
Yeah, but that's like. yeah, it's not the same, is it? Right. Well, so this is like the third time I've tried to end this bloody podcast.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, no, I'm joking.
No, we're done. Bye.
Bye, guys. Oh.